This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, and we take a look at the political pieces we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 8th of April, 2020, and I am DM.
I'm Tom.
And I am JM. In case you missed the headlines this morning, here they are. In the Standard, tragedy of Kenya's empty grain stores. In the Star, alarm as 17 MPs and senators test positive for COVID. And in the Daily Nation, stay safe, hashtag wear a mask together. So what are we being told in the Standard?
The Standard is telling us that our strategic food reserves are empty. And they're pointing this out because in the event that we do head into a total lockdown and the government is required to provide relief or set up some sort of food distribution system, there'd be no food to distribute. However, they are saying, or rather the agency, the SFR, the Strategic Food Reserve, said that there is 10 billion that is set aside to buy food. They're also pointing out that 1.7 million people are food poor. That means on a day-to-day basis, they struggle to put food on their tables. But the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics had pointed out that 14 million people would actually face food insecurity in the event of a total lockdown. So those are the facts that the Standard is putting forward.
Okay. And and you know the other thing that might complicate this issue is I think two things that we've mentioned here. First is locusts. If we have another locust epidemic in June, then that's going to be a problem because our harvest is going to go, and that's when crop is supposed to be growing and we're supposed to be harvesting.
Absolutely.
But the second thing is the entire world is going through this COVID crisis, so people don't have much to dish out and to sell.
So we may have the 10 billion, but
exactly
where do we buy the food from?
10 billion will probably 10 billion will probably only buy us half of what we ought to get in ordinary times.
Yes, absolutely. I think in this context, it takes you from being as a country a purchaser or an importer to being a beggar of food. But I think
food will be sold to the highest bidder.
Absolutely. But upon reading this report in the Standard, I think there are two gaps or there are two things that we're not making considerations over. One is that when they point out who is food poor or who is food insecure, they're not taking into account the regular person. You see, we're looking at informal settlements and people who earn wages and people who live from hand to mouth, so to speak. But me who lives in my nice house in Donholm, if there's a total lockdown, and there's and I've lost my income. There's a temporary redundancy, for instance. Where do I get food? Because on a normal day, I wouldn't be considered food poor or food insecure, but I will be in the event of a lockdown. Has the government put that into consideration?
DM, that's very true. You see, when there was Arab Spring in Egypt, what happened was the revolutionaries did not tell bakers that they should produce more bread because a revolution is coming. What actually happened is when the revolution happened, more people stayed at home. The price of bread went up because bread was scarce. Now, was that a factor in to increase the revolution? Absolutely. In the Sudan, for example, the prices of food went up. It's not because people did not have the money. It's because food at that time did not exist. So yes, you may have the money at home, but what if the food doesn't exist? The chances of you getting irritated and probably getting out of the street is because you're hungry. You may have all the money.
I have a differing opinion. First of all, we'll go into intermittent fasting, which is not such a bad thing for us. Our bodies will shrink a little bit. But the second thing, and this draws from North Korea. You know what the first leader of communist North Korea used to do? And I think it's still common practice in North Korea today. He used to ration people's food. And the rationale there is if you're supposed to, let's say, eat 1,800 calories a day, and you are given food worth 800 calories a day, it means that I'm more likely to succeed in suppressing you, because you won't have the energy to come out to the streets.
What a terrible example.
So what's going to happen in actual fact is that these people with empty stomachs are not going to be able to make it out to the streets. They'll be too hungry. They might be even too ill. And so they'll have no choice but to stay indoors.
So it's not too hungry, you're just putting them in the periphery of total hunger and having something in their stomach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the standard. We have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge headlines.
Yeah.
Topical, speculative, repetitive, groundbreaking, and finally thoughtful or just plain lazy.
I think it's extremely groundbreaking, this.
Absolutely. It's a fairly good one. I think we put it in the parking bay.
Absolutely.
What do you have in the star?
They say alarm as 17 MPs and senators test positive for COVID. And yes, they say that 200 MPs and senators were tested, and 17 of them came out positive. And as a result of this, today's sitting in Parliament, special sitting in Parliament, has been cancelled as per the advice of the Health Ministry. Look, I have 2 ways of looking at this. First is, yes, MPs are complete social beings. They interact with their constituents. Now, what are the chances that they may have spread this virus to their constituents? It's very high. But second, I think the star is also being a little bit alarmist by saying that MPs, because, I mean, this thing could get anybody. By saying alarm as MPs test positive for COVID is sort of making them seem like demigods of sort. I know some of you may not agree.
But they are.
They're not demigods.
A member of parliament does not come as one. They come as 100,000. They represent people. The other thing also is that it makes us think, why are these people? First of all, they travel a lot, as we know. Did they come into the country and self-quarantine or not? And if there's a failure in them doing what the authorities are telling us to do, then there's a problem.
Look, absolutely. But so is anybody playing golf. So is anybody in a golf club or in a country club.
Nobody but their family. But an MP is accountable to all of us.
You know,
very true.
It ends up in them not congregating in order to institute laws or put into place emergency laws to govern at this time. They provided that limitation that doesn't affect just them and their family, but the country in general.
Nonetheless, the ministry was good to advise that Parliament should not convene, because if it convenes, then some more people will get corona, and they may just go ahead and give it to people.
Let me give you my 2 cents on this. You know, the president told us yesterday that he personally ordered the arrest of our super spreader deputy governor.
Yes,
Saburi. I think is his name.
Yeah.
And it's precisely because of that the Star is saying alarm as 17 MPs and senators test positive, because these people have the potential to be super spreaders.
Yes.
You know, they go from one function to the other.
Yeah.
They knowingly or unknowingly spread COVID.
Yes.
And so, you know, with good reason.
Yeah.
They're social creatures, as you said to him.
Yeah.
And this is why then you know, the state should take this seriously.
Yeah, they're held to a higher standard.
Precisely. That's the Star. Let's look at the Daily Nation. The Daily Nation is telling us, cover your face when you leave your house to protect yourself and those around you. And here it's reporting that the WHO yesterday revised its guidelines and advised everyone to wear masks. So the WHO has officially said now that wearing either a surgical mask, I guess, or an N95 mask significantly reduces your chances of either spreading or contracting COVID-19. And that's basically it.
Yes.
So I think in terms of winning headline, I think we'll give it to the Standard.
Absolutely.
I agree.
That's
fantastic.
Yeah.
And so on to the cartoons, the political pieces, the recall cartoons in this country. Are they humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, and finally effective or just plain lazy? That's our criteria.
Yes.
Let's begin with the Daily Nation.
Daily Nation. You have a man called Ndula. Ndula has drawn a caricature of Uhuru Kenyatta, and next to him is a bus driven by COVID, and it's carrying sofas, and there's someone behind there. I don't know who that is exactly. And the tires of the bus are actually not tires, they are padlocks, and Uhuru is saying, do you still demand a lockdown? I think in the sense this is who we already locked down in the first place. So why exactly would he be asking, do you still demand a lockdown?
Or he's asking, now that a partial lockdown has been instituted, he's asking, so do you want a total lockdown? Now that you've had a taste of the partial.
I really like how the president has staggered this. He's giving us lockdown in small installments.
Yes.
Taking us through slowly.
I
think we'll put this in the parking bay. Let's look at the Standard.
The Standard Gado has 2 tableaus there. On the top is before, wanted men and women for the army, and you see a small battalion of
yes,
army men and women. And then below that it says, today, wanted men and women for healthcare. Then you see doctors and surgeons and other health practitioners down there.
It's bloody boring. That. All right, what do we have in the star?
We're not even discussing it.
Didn't even give her a chance.
I think it's a good cartoon depicting the times.
Yeah. The star is the drawing of policeman who has stopped traffic next to, and that's at a roadblock. And it seems Kenyans are running on the side from, and they're crossing the border that had been set. And the caption there is the indefatigable. Yes, that's how you pronounce it. Task of containing Kenyans. You see, I saw this yesterday, and Kenyans had lined up on roadblocks demanding to be let through. And cop says, no, you cars cannot pass, but people can pass the border and go. So in my mind, I was asking myself, is it cars that pass corona, or is it people that pass corona? The fact that you've allowed people to go through and they may have this disease, then they will pass it on. The cars will not pass, will not give you corona. So I think, I don't know whether it's a mind block or this thing was not properly thought about.
So the people that are sneaking in that cartoon, sneaking out of the Nairobi metropolitan border, they are allowed to do that?
No, this I actually saw.
Or are they doing it illegally? Because from this cartoon I see it's Kenyans just defying authority and leaving the city even when they're not supposed to.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also, cannot comprehend why a cop would let a person pass through a border, and telling them, please come out of the car and you can walk to your place. I mean, it is not the car that is passing this disease, it is people passing this disease. And I think cops should be very firm on this.
That's one way to look at it. I also want to give my 2 cents here. This cartoon speaks to Kenyans, the inherently rebellious spirit of Kenyans, which is not a bad thing. And today we'll be talking about authority, and we'll be talking about the dividends of not obeying authority. This is why we lead the world in innovations such as M-Pesa.
Yes.
This is why we create so many things in this country. This is why the United States had a Kenyan for president, in fact. For some of these reasons.
Come on, JM.
JM, today you have
honestly, man. I've been seeing Africans walking through borders going to pass a disease.
I personally like this cartoon. I
love it.
I love it as well.
I love it.
My favorite thing is the Kenyans in the back there.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So we award the winning cartoon to the star.
Absolutely.
And so what is our final thought?
And now our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled Obedience to Authority, the experiment that challenged human nature, by Stanley Milgram.
Yes, so Stanley Milgram, this book he wrote in 1974, and he's an American social psychologist. In this book, he tells us that obedience, JM, is an integral part of society, of society's hierarchical structure. We obey every day. We obey our managers at work, our parents, and so on. Without obedience, he says, society might not function well at all. But there's a darker side to obedience. He says that throughout history, there has been genocides and wars that have been carried out by normal people, ordinary people, who are turned into murderers and rapists and torturers. So in an attempt to determine how susceptible we are to becoming obedient to authority without questioning it, and no matter the circumstances, the author did what is now famously known as the Milgram experiment. And the experiment addresses how we follow orders and especially how far we will go when we are commanded to do something by authority. So let me describe the experiment. Participants in the experiments are told that the experiment is about improving learning abilities through punishment. But of course, that is a facade.
Correct.
And the setup in the experiment has 3 people. There's the experimenter, who is a man dressed in a lab coat, so this is the person in authority. And then there's a learner who is an actor, and he's posing as a volunteer. So the experimenter and the learner are in on the experiment. And then there's the unsuspecting subject of the experiment who has volunteered to take part. So During the experiment, the learner, the actor, and the teacher, that is the participant, the volunteer, are separated by a partition. The teacher, who is now the participant, is instructed by the experimenter to ask the learner questions. And when the learner gets the questions wrong, the teacher is asked to administer an electric shock by pressing a button. Now the shock starts at 15 volts, you get the first question wrong, and then it continues to be incremental up to a whooping 450 volts, which is potentially mortal. The pain level is clearly displayed on the shock generator. So as the subject is pressing and seeing the voltage, they can also see the pain level. But the experimenter tells the participant, look, the voltage is high, yes. They will feel pain, yes. But we know that it is not going to cause any permanent damage on the person's tissues. So the actor, being an actor, will be screaming in agony every time that the shock is administered. But if the subject, the person taking part in the experiment, raised any concerns, the experimenter would just simply command them to continue.
Family.
And of course, the subject does not know that this person is acting. So the results of the experiments are shocking or not shocking, depending on how you see it. Over 50% of the participants obeyed and continued to administer shocks to the learner, quote unquote, despite the agonizing screams.
My goodness.
Even when the actor went silent as if they have died, they continued. And he asked, why did they obey so readily? He gives 2 reasons, and I'm sure there's more than 2 I'm going to point out later. The experimenter was seen as a person in authority. And he actually says that the lab coat that he's wearing played a big role in them, in the subject obeying and seeing them as a person who's in charge, a person who's powerful, a person who knows what they're doing. And also the environment, because this experiment was conducted in Yale University, which is very prestigious. Then secondly, he says that the subject of the experiment entered a state of mind called the agentic state, from the word agent. The agentic state. So the subject shifted responsibility from themselves to some external entity, and in this case it's the experimenter, it's this person in authority. So you tell your mind, it's not me, it's this person. And I see, and of course he attributes this to how people behave in wars or in genocides, or when they're instituting a curfew. Or enforcing a curfew. A policeman is just shift, because they're not given instructions to be brutal or to kill people, but in that moment their mind enters the agentic state, and they're saying, I'm following orders and I will do it to the best of my ability as commanded.
Absolutely. It's I'm glad you say that, because I was looking at the factors that increase obedience, and I really want to mix this with our own disposition as Africans and as per our social strata. See, Milgram found that subjects are more likely to obey in some circumstances more than others, and there were 5 instances when obedience was at its highest. So the first was when commands was given or were given by an experimenter, an authority figure, rather than another volunteer. You see, this guy you say was wearing a lab coat, and something Africans really, and probably everyone across the world, when you hear the term professor and he comes into the room, you all sort of defer to him. When you see a general marching and he's in his uniform, he's commanding this because he is in his element as a general. But the symbols of power, including the uniform, the spectacles and everything, is what also resonates in your subconscious. But second is experiments were done at a prestigious institution. Now, I have told you guys this before. As you pass through Muthaiga, that area, Muthaiga mini market, you never see an ounce of that or rubbish. And you know why? You see, Kenyans, if you follow a matatu, you see people throwing chewed sugar cane or spitting it out. Just anywhere, throwing stuff. But that place has nothing. Why? Because it looks so nice. It is intimidating to anybody who would want to make it dirty. And also as well, maybe if you've gone to, there are people maybe from Shagi in your house, or so somewhere that looks very nice. You notice their mother telling them, because they have not come across this thing because it looks so nice and it looks so upscale. But number 3 is the authority figure was present in the room with the subject. Now, when the president is in a room with everybody else, let's say with his ministers, he is a point of reference. They all defer to him. When the ministers are around, they can all mingle about. But when the president is there, because he's in the room with the subject, now they'll defer to him. But 4, the learner was also in another room. When you're alone in the room, when these guys were being experimented and they knew that another person is in the room, and the experimenter was there, they're much more likely to defer to him because it was a two-way relationship. 5, the subject did not see other subjects disobeying commands. You see, there is something that soldiers would get if they see another soldier disobeying the commands of the general. And that is because what institutes itself in the mind of the person who has seen this is now we can also rebel authority, because he has done it, I may as well do it.
Yeah. And a mutiny
occurs. And I couldn't agree more with the 5 instances that or when obedience was at its highest.
Obedience is a prerequisite for social order. I agree. But a healthy dose of rebellion is also important.
I also agree.
And that is what that is how he also ends his book, by telling us that breaking free from authority, yes, is extremely hard to do, but it has its dividends. And so in the experiments conducted by the author, there are those specimens, those subjects who disobeyed. And they rebelled because they were put under immense pressure, that pressure that you talked about, DM. And they didn't want to cause harm to a fellow human being. So they decided to break free and follow their own moral code instead of cruel command of authority. And he gives an example of real life, and that's in the Nazi regime, where most Germans simply accepted the orders of Nazi command or turned a blind eye to the persecution of the Jews. Yet some heroes daringly rebelled against those Nazis, hiding entire Jewish families for months, as well as working in the resistance to overthrow the Third Reich. People like Oskar Schindler from the Schindler's List movie. People like those who made history in rebellion. But there's, the thing here is that people who end up leaving a mark on the world are rebels. People like Jesus Christ, people like Martin Luther, people like Martin Luther King, Jomo Kenyatta, Jaramogi Odinga, Kenya's entire set of independence heroes, Steve Jobs. The list is endless. These people are heroes because they decided to rebel against authority. And that's the lesson here, and it applies as well to business. So that's those are the dividends. But
obey authority during a global pandemic.
For your own good, absolutely. So on a day that we had a winning headline from the Standard and a winning cartoon from the, was it the Star?
Yes, it was a Star.
I want to leave you with this quote before we get the challenge of the day. By Sam Walton, the founder of the U.S. retail giant Walmart. He said, "Swim upstream, go the other way. If everybody else is doing it one way, there's a good chance you can find your niche by going in exactly the opposite direction."
I like it.
Yeah.
So the quarantine challenge of the day. Take away my first letter and I still sound the same. Take away my last letter and I still sound the same. Even take away my letter in the middle and I still sound the same. I am a 5-letter word. What am I?
Good one. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are also on your TV screens. Find us on Pan Free to Air, Go TV, and Star Times. Have a good evening.